Get ready to dive deep into a whole new dimension of musical passion inside the fabulous Flamingo Lounge. In the Flamingo Lounge with Rockabilly Greg is more than just a podcast. It's a collection of stories that celebrates the powerful history of the music we love. While I usually delve deep into the vibrant sounds of Buffalo and Western New York, creating a living archive of our local legends, I'll be expanding the horizon to tell stories from the global stage. This week marks the debut session of Favorites, a captivating new series where I step outside the 716 area code to shine a spotlight on my personal favorite artists. These are the trailblazers, icons, and sounds that have shaped my musical DNA. But before we get started, I'd like to give a big shout out to our valued supporters, Buffalo Ironworks and Sportsman's Tavern, for helping to keep the music alive. The Midnight Cowgirls are a powerhouse feminine collective poised to revolutionize the music scene with their electrifying blend of country, rock, metal, post-punk, and rockabilly. Their fresh sound defies genre conventions, seamlessly blending twangy guitars with pulsating bass lines and driving rhythms, and some great harmonies. Conceptualized by songwriter, bassist, and fashion designer stylist Jennie Vee, the band is also led by multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, and lead vocalist Blaise Dahl, drummer, vocalist, and composer Marlhy Murphy, and guitarist and vocalist Cassidy Fleeman. The band spent the summer of 2024 opening for rockabilly legends the Stray Cats during their U.S. tour and quickly gained the attention of Sirius XM Outlaw Country, who have since premiered 2 of their singles and aired them as the last in-studio live performance of the year. In 2025, the band were invited to open for Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Jack White, Eagles of Death Metal, and most recently performed alongside First Lady of Outlaw Country, Nikki Lane, at the Patron Desert House Stagecoach Party. They are getting ready for their upcoming tour, which will start in Brooklyn on June 18th, and will be performing here at Buffalo Ironworks on June 22nd as part of the tour. Please welcome to In the Flamingo Lounge Favorites from the Midnight Cowgirls, Blaise Dahl. Blaise, thank you so much for being my guest here on the first session of this Favorites series that I have.
Thank you. I feel like I have a lot to live up to now.
I know, quite the intro. I'm going to start out by saying I saw the Stray Cat show a couple years ago. I saw you guys on stage, loved it. I got one of these. So
very nice.
Yeah. So I always love to get which I just showed Blaise a picture of the Midnight Cowgirls album that they had available at the show. I don't think those are still available anymore, but I got one.
No,
so,
that's a relic of times past.
yes,
That's I hope that'll be worth something someday.
Yeah, let's hope so. That's I'm a collector of records and I collect recordings, so I'm not just a vinyl snob. I also collect CDs, 78s, 45s, you name it. So if there's a song or something on there that I want to collect, that's what I do. But before we get into it, as I mentioned before we got on the air, I always like to ask everyone who I have as a guest, did you have an aha moment when you said music's what I want to do?
It's funny because I would classify the aha moment as it's a pretty immediate once it happens to you. It just comes over you, right?
Right.
You know,
yeah.
It's pretty, snap your fingers. I like to say I was almost a professional child. When I was a kid, I was very, very driven. And I used to actually, when I would be hanging out with friends just outside of school, I'd be bored out of my mind and I would call my mom and say, hey, can you make up an excuse and say that I need to leave? Like, I don't want to be here anymore. And my focus was figure skating and dance for a very, very long time. And I would compete. And then I went to Alvin Ailey to study modern I was already in a couple of ballet companies. And long story short, there came a point where I had a growth spurt and the stress of that and falling when you're attempting double jumps on the ice in competition. I didn't make it to triple. And then, doing all sorts of different technique for dance that my dance instructors and my figure skating instructors would fight because the techniques are so different, even though sometimes they hate each other. I was, again, bored out of my mind when I had 3 spinal stress fractures that happened as all of these things made the worst perfect storm. And I was always interested in singing. I was always interested in music in general. I was a classically trained pianist when I was a kid. And when my focus kind of became more figure skating and dance oriented, that kind of went lower on the priority list. And my mom said to me, you know what? You always wanted to play guitar. And my focus became vocal lessons and guitar lessons. And there just came a point where when I healed and I was cleared by physical therapy and the orthopedist and everything to go back to the very physical things that I was doing,
Sure.
I loved them still, but the priority list started to change, right? And when I was a teenager, I started writing my first songs, and I took a gap year before I started my degree online with Berklee College of Music. And I was in New York, 45 minutes outside of Manhattan. So I started playing in clubs when I was a teenager and asking older friends whose old ID that was expired that I could use to get into the club.
Right.
And yeah, it just kind of took off from there. So I don't really know if you would classify that as an aha moment. I think I had more of a
Yeah.
looking back reflection moment,
Sure.
but I think that was the trajectory, excuse me, for me.
Yeah, no, that's everyone has a different answer, which is interesting. But it sounds like it was in you, though, right? I mean, you kind of had it in you, and you
Yes.
had to wait for the right time. And it's funny how things kind of find the right time to happen. I mean, it took me 57 years until I got to be a podcast host. So and I've always had the gift for gab and wanting to do something like this. But so now, when you were, first of all, what kind did you start guitar on, acoustic or on an electric guitar?
I started on acoustic
Hmm.
because the instructor that I had said you got to build up that
Yeah,
finger strength before you're allowed to
yeah,
get an electric.
yeah.
So I did it the right way.
Right, there you go. I tried 20 years ago to learn guitar, and I had an acoustic, and I went, man, I can't do this. So I switched to an electric. And now it's actually just an artifact. I've had it signed by musicians, and it hangs on the wall. But because it's
Hey, that's a-okay
yeah,
too.
I sing, but I can't play guitar. And I don't put enough time into it. It's you have to put the time into it, right? To really
Yeah.
to get that what is it, the 10,000 hour rule or something like that? That you
Uh-huh.
have to,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then when you apply that rule to not even just the practicing, but the performance aspect of it in front of people too, it's
yeah,
like, how many hours are we gonna
yeah,
log at this point?
right. Well, and the performing in front of people, that's a whole different ball of wax. I mean, right? I mean, you can be playing in your living room or wherever and go, that's good, but then you get out in front of everyone and the lights are shining and everyone's screaming and people are or people aren't paying attention at all, right? And and you're trying to get their attention.
And
It's
that's a different story too. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's been there, done that. So so now, when kind of speaking of that, so like when you were in high school and you were developing this, were you in a band in high school, or were you doing like theater and trying to keep out there on stage and
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where I was doing musical theater for a bit. I went to the Atlantic Acting School as well.
mm,
So again, I mean, when you talk about performing in front of people, I think that not to say that there isn't a bit of those jitters before you get out on stage, because
sure,
those are always going to be there, but I think now I mean, I already have diagnosed anxiety. So it's like, let's just add stage anxiety towards it. But it's
yeah,
like you live with it and you manage it, right?
right, yeah,
But when it comes to music and how things kind of developed original wise, I went to School of Rock when I was a
mm,
teenager, and I was in their all-star program. So we toured across the country and we played with Mike Peters of The Alarm, and
mm,
we were playing festivals like Lollapalooza and Hangout Fest, and it was kind of my trade school, right?
mm-hmm,
I mean, I went there to take guitar lessons ultimately and perform in shows. And the idea was that I would meet like minded kids who would want to perform in a band and start
mm-hmm,
with me while we were learning music history and getting a very fun but still rigorous education. And one of the reasons I went there was because at the time, Ellen Foley was teaching vocal lessons there.
Okay.
And she happened to be like in and out of there. And I loved Ellen Foley. My dad loved Meatloaf. I was always listening to Bad Out of Hell, that record growing up. So I really was like, I need to take vocal lessons with Ellen Foley. And unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But when I did audition for All Stars, she did get to see me.
Oh, wow.
And then once I graduated, then I took a gap year and I was already in New York. I had made a lot of connections with people and I was playing shows in clubs with my own original project and I met more people that way. I started playing in their projects. I did a bit of TV and film where I was on a show called Tales of the City that was a revival for Netflix and I was in the backing band at the club. So I was on screen, but then they also brought us into the studio to record. I did a few shows with the Losers Lounge led by Joe McGinty, who was in the Psychedelic Furs. So just really taking advantage of the fact that you're in one of the greatest music cities of the world.
Yes,
I mean, they all, I mean, you got Nashville, you got LA, you got New York, you want to talk about across the pond, you got London, you have everything that has its own flavor and you take advantage of that when it's 45 minutes outside of where you're living. And ultimately that's where I met Jennie.
Right.
And
Okay.
Jennie was living in New York at the time and our bands played a couple of shows together and she was putting together, very on par with what's going on right now.
Right.
She's putting together an all-female backing band for her video.
Oh, okay.
And somebody who knew her introduced us. And one of my favorite stories to tell is that we know Jennie as the badass queen of bass that she is. And at the time, Jennie was singing and playing guitar and I was her bassist. So, I got 1,000,001 stories like that about how, things just kind of formed my career that way. And Jennie moved out to LA and we always kept in touch. And when she conceptualized the Midnight Cowgirls, she asked me to join and here I am.
Oh, there you go. So now I'm going to kind of go back a little bit because you mentioned, your first project. So what was that first project?
My solo project, Dollhouse, which is very 80s and 90s influenced in terms of the soundscapes. I have always really loved indie rock and alternative rock from that era. And when I started really writing music, the time I was listening to a lot of post-punk and new wave. I always will have a place in my heart for the Smiths and Johnny Marr's guitar playing. And then I also really liked shoegaze stuff like My Bloody Valentine. I liked the more dream pop elements of the Cocteau Twins. And I started writing songs on GarageBand and piecing together loops and learning how to produce and buying an interface and doing things very DIY, which, I mean, we all know that's the age that we live in.
Right.
It's not something that's unique to me. And I assembled a band around that from any place that I played, I could be a 3-piece, I could be a 4-piece, I could be a 5-piece, I could be myself. I also got very into playing with the tracks that I had recorded myself and then bringing an instrument on stage, whether it was I'm playing synth today, or I'm playing guitar, or I'm playing bass, or when I would have a band, sometimes I would swap back and forth between different instruments. That's where the majority of a lot of my work was and how I also just met people.
Right. Well, you were a serial entrepreneur, weren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, man, you
ambition.
There you go. So I love it. So now you mentioned, how many instruments do you play?
I play guitar, I play bass, I play keyboard, and I sing. I have not tried to hit the drums, and I think I'm still gonna take that aside and not try anytime soon. That'll be that area of ambition we leave aside for now.
Well, there you go. I mean, you can fill in some spots on the in the band. It sounds like, right? So
yeah.
And I love that concept. There's a local band here called Stress Dolls, and led by a girl, Chelsea O'Donnell, and she runs a local radio show. And but Stress Dolls could be a solo, it could be a duo, it could be a 4-piece. I love that concept, and it seems like you have the same thing where you're really in control kind of your own marketing your own self, but you're like, hey, if I'm going to do a duo today, or if I'm going to bring in a band, if I'm going to do this, it's all under you,
Yeah.
right? It's your project, so you've got the control, and you can take it where you want to. I think I do marketing. My day job is I'm in marketing services, so I always love to talk about how people get their message out and how they, what they're doing, because there's a lot of noise out there today, right? That you really got to try to cut through and get the attention of folks. So
For
hopefully this
sure.
podcast will help get through some noise too and let people know
Yes.
about you. So, but that's always the goal. But because it's not the old days of sign a record contract, get promoted, go around. I mean, and I know you guys, Midnight Cowgirls, you're doing everything on your own. And I think if I look at the clock, your your Kickstart campaign just ended.
Just
So
ended. Yeah, the
just
45
ended.
minutes are up.
Yeah,
That was the
I'm
last
I'm
time
gonna
I
be
looked.
looking forward to my postcard from when you're out on the road. So hopefully that'll
Ah,
be fun.
yes.
So yeah, but which is great, and I'm pretty sure you guys made your goal, correct?
We did. We made actually two stretch goals beyond that too. We, again, going back to ambition, I
Yeah.
mean, we you said it best.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of noise out there, and it's good noise, right?
Right.
But it's also, I like to say that the villain in all of it is not the artists and the community, because we love supporting people, we love playing with them, we love collaborating with them. And I think that's also one of the things to say about like going from a duo to a trio and things like that. Everybody has multiple hats
Mm-hmm.
that they wear, right? Whether they're cowgirl related or not, like they're wearing a ton of hats because they have their solo project, they have their day job, they have everything else in between, anything else that they do. So, that kind of commitment can falter with different people, but it also means that you have to be very, very on your toes, ambitious all the time. Otherwise, you're just not going to be able to compete with this algorithm that demands something constantly. Because
Yeah.
if you're not posting every single day, you're now lesser prioritized in people's feeds. And it's not a matter of like, they don't want to see you. It's just that it's sometimes impossible for them
Right.
to see you. So
Yeah.
that's been the beauty of this Kickstarter, has been really leveraging the fan support and seeing people contribute in real time, getting to know them, talking to them, and then them saying something to you like, hey, I know the owner of this venue, or hey, this is the venue that I go to locally, and I would love for you to come by. And now we have the funds to go to these different cities. Because I mean, the other thing too is that the girls are all out in LA or LA adjacent, and I'm the one out in New York. I
Mm.
joke that, the plane from JFK to LAX is my Long Island Railroad, because I'm initially a Long Island girl.
Right.
And I'm ready to do that at the drop of a pin. I'm actually doing it this weekend to film our music video, but it's
Okay.
also a matter of, it takes money, and
Mm-hmm.
we don't have a van where the back line is all there and we just hop in the van and we get on there. It's a little bit more complicated than that, and the funds help greatly in
Yeah.
that regard.
Yeah. Well, I will say because I've been following you guys ever since the Stray Cats tour a couple years ago, and the Kickstart campaign is what I saw it, and I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
they're coming to Buffalo. Why don't I reach out and see if you could do the podcast? So it's like sometimes it's that easy. It's not easy, of course, because I know I do a lot of my own socials and stuff like that. But if you weren't out there doing that, again, no one's going to know what's going on, and it's that whole they told two friends and they told two friends and so on and so on and so on, right?
Yeah.
So it's more than just hanging up a poster on a lamppost more these days. It's
And you can't even do that anymore
no,
because they got permits and all of these things, and
yeah,
they just take them down or they fine you.
I know.
So it's a bummer, right?
Yeah, it's like, come on, guys, and we're just trying to do this thing. And now, as far as let's kind of get into the Midnight Cowgirls a little bit. So you had kind of mentioned that you and Jennie started looking at putting the band together. So how did you guys, like, when did you start? Because I know you opened for the Cats in 2024. So was it before that, or like close to that tour, or?
So Jennie had conceptualized the band and had this idea based off of a jumpsuit that she had
Mm,
designed. And she called it the Midnight Cowgirl jumpsuit. And
mm,
she said that needs to be a band.
mm,
And she actually reached out to me when the Stray Cats tour was established, when they were about to launch the Kickstarter.
mm-hmm.
And I mean, you said you were at the Art Park show
Yeah,
on the initial
yeah,
tour, so you know I was not the lead singer initially,
right, yeah.
and I came on not even knowing if I was going to be in the band long term because again I was used to doing session work, whether I was a touring member of a band on guitar
Mm-hmm.
or if I was just in the studio adding like background vocals or whatever. So she said we need somebody to play keyboard and then sometimes switch to rhythm guitar. And I went, cool, that's in my skill set. You're not asking me to sing and play drums. So I went, yeah, of course, like I'm on board. And once we got into the rehearsals, we kind of were like, yeah, if you want to join long term, we would love to have you. And like any new project, because the crazy thing about that was the Stray Cats tour was the first tour for the
Mm-hmm.
band. You know,
Right.
you have the first EP, the EP was being recorded, and then the vinyl was produced by Licorice Pizza in the nick of time, got it to the press, got it out right before we were about to leave down
Mm-hmm.
to the wire. And again, going back to people having their own projects and just kind of the way that things had evolved
Mm-hmm.
from the songwriting perspective, from the performance perspective. There was just differences in certain things, and the lineup that we have now, we've been at it for a year. And to go back to the aha moment, I think there was an aha moment with the two girls that have since joined.
Okay.
You know, I always kind of came on, and once I was in the band, I had my instrumental duties, but there was the idea that the Cowgirls sound came from three-part harmony as well. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
just a matter of it's a band. It's
Right.
not a solo project.
Sure.
And so I had things that I was singing on the Stray Cats tour where it's like, here's my verse in the song, here's the song that I sing, and then eventually it evolved into okay, you're going to step into the front woman role. And now it is very, very rare that I get behind a keyboard or, you know, get behind a guitar because we
Mm.
have the incredible Cassidy Fleeman, who, when she came in, we had people who really were in auxiliary roles, never were fully a fledged member of the band.
Mm-hmm.
She came in, and the register in her voice and her confidence and the fact that she had a binder, like a DIY binder of the Midnight Cowgirls, she printed out her
Oh
logo,
wow.
put it in the front. It was like, all right. And she stepped in, and the harmonies had never sounded the way that they did
Hmm.
when she was there because she just had this very like balls to the wall high belt that molded perfectly or blended or whatever you
Mm.
want to see.
Right.
And before that, we had Marlhy Murphy, who's our drummer and writes with us as well. When she came in as a sub for our Texas tour with Surfer Jets, she was in the rehearsal, and it's kind of a hard thing to come in and be the sub, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
not want to step on anybody's toes. And there were songs that we were working on at the time that had never been played live, that it hadn't even been recorded, that were very much in the demo stage. And she shaped those and she
Wow.
arranged them. And it was just kind of like, you always should have been here sort of deal.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know, there's been a lot of development, and I think also in terms of the new material, and a lot of the songs I know aren't streaming yet, the sound has evolved with that,
Mm-hmm.
where there will always be that country sensibility. That was one of the things that we wanted to play around with. But like you said in the beginning, that intro, it is the blend where there's a lot of stuff that has a pop sensibility to it or leans a little bit more rock and in
Mm-hmm.
your face. And when we were working with certain guitarists, you know, solos that would come through would have a metal edge to it because it was influenced a little bit by hair metal. So that's one of the things that we love to play around with, is the mosh pit of it all.
Right. And it's I've talked to many folks on the podcast. Genre seems to be something that's not really a thing anymore, because music's just music, because there's so much that's everything's just blended, and it seems with the environment being now where people are on YouTube and Spotify and everything, you don't have to pigeonhole yourself to a country station or a classic rock station or whatever it is, and then be really pigeonholed that, well, you don't quite fit that, so you don't fit in. And now I mentioned, you're on Sirius XM, and they've got channels for everything, which is phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, you can't argue that there's nothing good to listen to. I mean, just
no
Sirius on. There's great stuff out there to be found, and so. But I also wanted to ask you, because you had mentioned your writing process. So what is your process now? Is there, I always like to ask too, do you guys do lyrics first, or do you do music first and then let it shape from there?
Jennie has written the majority of these songs. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that is great about this day and age is that she will send me something via voice note, via email. Sometimes mm-hmm. it's like really fleshed out, like, hey, what do you think of this entire thing? Because she's prolific. I mean, right. She writes a ton. And then sometimes it'll be more like, I just came up with this verse. So there's really not a starting point that is always there. Mm-hmm. And then one of the things that we did at the end of last year, these are the songs that we're recording right now, is we went into the studio in Nashville with Marty Fredrickson, and he's written with tons of people everywhere from Aerosmith to Carrie Underwood to Pink. And the songwriting process in there could really just be, this is going to kind of sound weird in a way, but like you pluck something out of thin air and right. Then you just go with it. And so everybody would have their computer out and be writing lyrics in real time on this Google Doc, so you could all be up to date, but it would look like a hodgepodge because everybody was typing it in a different place. Huh. And then somebody would get out the guitar, whether it would be Marty or me or Jennie, and then we'd be like, what about this chord structure? Oh, what if we do this? Oh, what if we actually change the key? So there's some sessions where it is very collaborative, and then there's like other sessions where Jennie and Marlhy and I have been in an Airbnb at 11 p.m. and I've opened up Logic, and I'll be like, we don't have any instruments in here right now because we're not in our home turf, and all of the mm-hmm. instruments. We try to travel light. You right. don't want to pay that oversized check bag fee. Yeah. So there'll be nothing in the Airbnb except your computer. So I'm literally typing out MIDI keyboard wise a bass line or a guitar line, and then we're all doing this. I mean, you should hear some of the voice notes that I have, because you would think the way that we are singing that there is no musical talent whatsoever, because you're just yelling into this thing. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like trying to voice the drums and going like, so there's all sorts of ways to go about it. And that's what's cool about the band, is that it is a collaborative energy. So if somebody has a song that they've written all the way through and we're like, this song freaking rocks, yeah. we're going to play it that way. If there's a song where we're like, hey, we wrote this together, or, it's 90% of the way done, let's put the finishing touches on it together, we do that too.
Oh, that's cool. And I'm going to use this point in the session to bring up that you've been wonderful to share a track called yeah. Born Ready with me. So yes. We're going to listen to that. First, kind of give me the outline of the song before we play it. So like, was that another kind of put together the way you just described, or?
Born Ready, in terms of the chord structure and the lyrics, was our amazing Jennie Vee. And we went into Cave Studio in Los Angeles to kind of flesh it out. The funny thing is that a lot of the songs that you've heard on Sirius, because we would be trying to get these done as quickly as possible for a release strategy, a lot of the vocals were actually recorded in my bedroom. Like, I just had a really nice mic, and right. The beauty of technology now, you'd never know. No pop filter, nothing. And I'm singing it sitting like I am right now. And this was actually the first song that we recorded where we were all there. Bella Perron is the one who did the lead guitar for that one. And like I said, she comes from this background where she is just a shredder and put a solo on this thing where she shreds like there's no tomorrow. And the lyrics, I think, are a very trademark Cowgirls thing where it is one of those kick-ass, in your face, I ain't taking nothing sort of deal with a vocal where you have the harmonies in the background. You got some oohs and ahs on the bridge where it breaks down, but you also have that kind of bluesy rock belt that borders on that Southern rock influence as well. So that's how I would describe Born Ready.
Cool. Well, let's give a listen to Born Ready by the Midnight Cowgirls.
Fled from the hurricane, midnight train. Mama said I came out kicking with fire in my veins, in my veins. Rays on thunder, fear no flame. Ain't nobody gonna tarnish my good name, my good name. 'Cause I was born ready, born wild and free. Ain't nobody gonna pray for me. Born ready, born wild and free. Throw me to the wolves, hang me out to dry. Wanna steal my soul, love to see 'em try. Made a deal with the devil down in Tennessee. Walked the line where heaven and hell met in a dream, in a dream. Heaven said to hell, well, I like your fire. Hell said to heaven, I'm burning with desire. Take me higher, take me higher. 'Cause I was born ready, born wild and free. Ain't nobody gotta pray for me. Born ready, born wild and free. Throw me to the wolves, hang me out to dry. Wanna steal my soul, love to see 'em try. Cause I was born ready, born wild and free. Born ready, born wild and free. I was born ready, born wild and free. Ain't nobody gonna pray for me. Born ready, born wild and free. I'm born ready, I'm born ready. More ready, more ready.
Yeah. Wow. Talk about some shredding. You're right. Wow.
Yep.
Harmonies. I mean, wow. And one thing is as we're recording this, I actually was watching the video as this was going on. You did that in black and white. Was there a specific reason why you chose black and white for that?
You know, who we worked with, George Reed, who's actually shooting our music video this weekend as well for our next single. He's just, his images and his videos are just beautiful.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why we love working with him is that obviously we're all very creative. We collab, we come through and we say we have this idea. And I think he might have actually been the one to suggest to doing it in black and white, which I mean, he was absolutely spot on. But it's almost kind of like a film noir Western performance video, you know? Like
Yeah.
it's got that. We shot it at I can't remember the name of the ranch. I'd have to look it up. But it was in Santa Clarita, and there were actual horses and all these animals there. And then there was that little saloon that we came out of,
Right.
and then, performed outside. So I think it was really just more of, hey, what are all of the things that we love, and what are all the things that we're influenced musically by too, like something that's a little bit darker but still
Mm-hmm.
country and still rock and roll.
Right. Oh, and I think it works great because I just love that real high contrasty, black and white look. It fit. You guys are all wearing black outfits anyway, so it kind of really, fit in it. It did give that kind of old timey, feeling to it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I loved it. So, and I look forward to hearing that live at the show at the Ironworks. So
Yes.
use this time a little bit here. Tell me about the tour. So what? I think you're starting Thursday on the 18th in Brooklyn. So
Yes.
so where? How long's the tour for?
This is going to be, I call it like the June run, because it is going to be the longest time consecutively that we are on the road. So from June 18th to July 2nd, we will be in the Sprinter van going through a lot of Canadian dates. We're also going to be in Kentucky. We'll be in Nashville, returning back there. We're happy to come back to Honky Tonk Tuesdays. We're going to be playing Motoblot Festival in Chicago. We obviously have the show in Buffalo. And then when we go to the end of July, we will be on the Stray Cats tour again, not the entirety of it, but
Right.
dates here and there. So we're really excited about being the first opening act at the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas.
Right.
And then we have a couple of shows in August as well. Even though it's not home for me, it's the home base for the band in California. So we'll be playing a couple of shows in California. We'll be going back to the Midwest in August. We have a few dates in Ohio with the Stray Cats, and without, we're going to Galva, Illinois, Missouri. So really trying to hit the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast as much as we can on these summer dates.
Right. Well, I'm glad you picked Buffalo as part of your tour stop. So that's pretty wild. So
Last year, I think we actually, because we played in Toronto, so
Okay.
we stayed in Buffalo because it was a travel day for us.
Okay.
And then we didn't play there. We just got to chill. So, I mean,
okay.
now we're at least playing.
That's good. Did you guys get out to see anything here in Buffalo, or take in any of the sights, the food, anything like that, or?
I don't think we did. The next day we went over into Niagara Falls and we did some touristy things. Our drummer Marlhy had never been to the Rainforest Cafe.
Oh wow!
And she was
Yeah.
she was adamant that we had to go to the Rainforest Cafe.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Jennie was not happy. She called it the Rainforest Crape. And that is an inside joke now throughout the band.
Right.
I had a good time, and we got to ride the Franken coaster that was
Yeah.
over there. So I think also we're trying to be, again, as ambitious as we can be. And there's a lot of these where we're literally playing 4 or 5 shows in a row and then have a day off.
Sure.
So unfortunately, I think a lot of the touristy things that we'll probably get to do this time is look out the window and see.
say hello.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because I think after Buffalo, you're going up to like Hamilton and
Yes.
around the lake and up to the Horseshoe, which I love the Horseshoe up in
It's
Toronto.
great.
It's a great venue. Yeah, it's my buddy Teddy Fury's a drummer, and he's the bartender up there too. So
Oh, nice.
Rockabilly
All
guy.
right, we'll
so,
say hi.
Yeah, make sure. Yeah, he's a great guy. He was just down here, actually in Buffalo at Sportsman's. A group called the Lester Kings always stop by, and they do an Elvis show right around Elvis's birthday, and
Cool.
he filled in on drums, which was I mean he's just such a cool cat, and
That's awesome.
But he was in a bunch of rockabilly bands, I think called the Bobcats way back in the late '70s, right around when Stray Cats were doing their thing and getting off the ground, and the Royal Crowns was a band they used to get here in Buffalo, because a friend of mine was the bass player for that. So,
Cool.
he had friends up in Canada who had an upright bass, so he didn't have to lug that sucker over the border all the time. I can imagine that's not an easy thing to do. So
I don't even want to envision that, because it's one of those things where you're there and you're like, have I filled out all of the paperwork? Am I about to be arrested? Like, are you going to think that my merch hasn't been,
Yeah.
written up for?
yeah, Yeah. Oh, I know. And just you mentioned the Surfer Jets. They were just here in town few
Oh,
weeks
awesome.
ago. So yeah, I love watching them. They're awesome. And they had an opener, Bethlehem Shalom, which I think she's from Alaska. She was wild. She was really very different. I loved it. We have a cool scene here in Buffalo. So which is why I do my podcast. And but I'm so glad that you guys could get here to Buffalo and do a tour, and I'm looking forward to the show. But
Yeah, we're stoked.
yeah, now I'm going to take a totally different because I jump all over. I got ADD, so I never stay
That's
on track.
fine.
But another thing that you do is you mentioned taking vocal lessons, but you also give vocal lessons, correct?
I did for a while, and that's the fun thing about the Kickstarter is
Mm-hmm.
that I kind of,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say semi-retired, but the day job that I have now is not typically that, and
Mm-hmm.
I kind of said, you know what, you want to be able to give back to this community in a way that everybody knows that there's always going to be a t-shirt, and yeah, it's cool that it's a limited edition one here. It's a really cool t-shirt,
Mm-hmm.
but what else can we do? And one of them was when we got the stretch goal for the music video, we went, all right, who wants to be in the music video? And I went, you know what? Who wants to talk about vocal health? Who wants to learn technique? Who wants to
Mm-hmm.
talk about what the regimen is for being on the road?
Right. Because I mean, I'm a vocalist myself, and dabble in it. I mean, I'm not no, I'm definitely keeping my day job, but in learning guitar, I learned a lot how to kind of follow music, but I've never really been kind of trained to know how to keep the voice from being overstressed, and when to maybe not try to hit that note and maybe come down. Sometimes I think I do it naturally, but I think it would be kind of good for me to maybe get some actual training at some point, just to know, because it is an instrument, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think because we all love to sing, whether it's professionally
Mm-hmm.
or in the shower. And I think because it's one of those things where maybe you don't love to sing, but you would consider it more in line of something that you could do,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's you really excel at it. Everybody's born with different gifts. Everybody has to work harder at some things and less at others. But I think sometimes we forget about it is internally within
Right.
you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if we talk about working out your biceps, it's the same way of working out your vocal cords. And there's
Right.
going to come a point where you need to rest and recover them. And beyond just drinking water, a lot of it too, it's so hard on the road because a lot of the times it's not even just a matter of the set itself. You have, all right, 75 minutes, 90 minutes. Those will be like the long ones that we do. Sometimes we're done by 30 or 45. It depends on the club. But then you're spending hours talking to people at the merch booth. You're doing promo on the road. Beyond that, we all just love to talk, right?
Right.
That's one of the number one ways to
Yeah.
communicate. I know I was that kid in school where they were always like, we got to move her because she's talking to this kid too much. And then like, I'd be next to somebody who I'd never met in my life. And then by the second day, I would not be able to shut up. Like they would have to separate me again. And
Yeah.
it's all work. It's all just consistent strain. So it's one of those things where you have to think about it from a scientific perspective and how you can support it as much as you can.
Right. Now, how do you train your voice, but try to keep your voice unique to yourself? Like I just went to a show with my wife, and we saw some very beautiful voices, but you can tell they're all like trained in the same way, and there wasn't a uniqueness to it. It was like correct, but there wasn't that extra thing that like takes you from the one level to the next level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Emma, how do you do that without losing yourself, if you will?
It's interesting because everybody obviously does have their own sense of self and flavor to their voice.
Right.
And I mean, one of the things about me when I was a kid, I always did have a slight rasp in my voice. And I think because of that, I obviously when I was singing, I wanted to include that. And I think that's also why I gravitated to certain singers when I was growing up and songs that I wanted to sing.
Right.
And, I always really loved Bonnie Raitt's voice. I always really loved Janis Joplin's voice.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's part of it. Like when you see yourself represented in that in some capacity, like, oh, I know that that's my strength, or
Right.
I know that that's going to be my range. Some people will hear somebody and they'll say they got these really sweet, warm, low notes, or they sound really jazzy. And I think one of the things that I personally did, and part of it was also just being a School of Rock kid, was you were taught to copy these recordings to a T. It wasn't really about interpreting it in your own way. It was, how can you emulate that? And for a guitarist, I think it's maybe a little bit easier, all right, I'm going to turn down the gain. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Obviously, you still need to have the finger style and everything like that. Voice is different. And it's about trying to, at least in my regard, I would find songs that I would like, and I would try to copy what they would do. And then when it came to writing my own material, it was, what do I like about this? What do I like about that? And singing my own lyrics in different ways to convey the emotion, and taking the tricks and basically just being influenced, right? I mean, just putting all of those influences together. And, it's definitely easier said than done, and it takes some work. And, sometimes then, especially now, like we throw in covers into the Midnight Cowgirls set, and some of them we do, I would say, pretty faithfully, but they all always have our own spin on them. And, making sure that you're not just copying it to a T at that point, and just finding the balance. Like, it's a weird thing. It's the learning process versus the finished product.
Right. Well, there's always that with a cover, with a cover band. People want to know a song and they want to sing along and all that good kind of stuff. But it's good when you keep it like fresh, and you put, it's a Midnight Cowgirls cover, not an anybody else cover. It's your cover, right? It's because whatever the song is, they've heard it the way. And I always bring up Johnny Cash and Hurt, but there's, like, I just heard Joe Cocker doing A Little Help with My Friends. I mean, that's a cover song, but holy moly, that's Joe Cocker. That's nobody else,
Right.
And there's other artists who have done that and put their own spin. I'm an Elvis fan. I don't know if you can see in the background here all my Elvis goodies, but when Elvis covered a song, it was an Elvis song. It's I always tell people, watch the Aloha from Hawaii show in 1973. He covered Hank Williams, he covered Gordon Lightfoot, he covered the Beatles, and every song he covered, it's like, oh, that's an Elvis song. So I think from that standpoint, it's good that what's there, because I think you have to know what's there, right? So you can take it to that next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also the bit of technique that everybody needs, so it's a matter of, hey, you're singing correctly. Because especially with rock music, one of my favorite DVDs to watch when I was like really getting into vocal health and training was Melissa Cross. And she would teach all of these super metal guys how to scream, and a lot of them, you think you're going to scream, right? And you don't think that there's like a right way to scream, but then people end up losing their voice when they're on the road, or they end up needing surgery or something like that. So it's about finding the way within your body, like not straining and lifting up, or, lifting from the roof of your mouth and things like that. And I think that that's why, there are things where, technically, yes, that is correct. And it's about finding that balance.
And I know from performing with my buddy, because he does the arranging, he's the one that sings the higher notes, and he's like, sometimes there's a method too to the way you put your set list together, right? Because so you don't want to do 5 or 6 really high belting songs all in a row, so you give your vocalist a little bit of a rest, or you sing a song that maybe has a lower register, and you kind of keep that going. And people are like, oh, really? I didn't know that. I'm like, yeah, because you don't want to blow your voice out there, especially during the middle of a show.
Right.
You know, I mean, that would be the worst. But there is some more than just some. There's a real method to that madness. You know,
Yeah.
to keep that going. And I know for me, I mean, we sing like a lot of 2-part harmony stuff, Simon and Garfunkel, Everly Brothers, and I tell everyone we are not Simon and Garfunkel. I mean, we're not singing that high, so we call ourselves old friends, and so we put our little spin on it, and people have always said, that was cool. I liked your rendition of it, and we're like, part of it is just because we can't do it the way they do, nor do we want to, because they do it.
Yeah.
They do it better than anybody, right? So we have to put our little thing on it and try to make our own thing of it. And of course, my buddy does some original stuff, but, which I always laugh at him because he never remembers the words to his own songs. and we're trying lately to get away from the book or the iPad thing. So it's, it gets distracting, I think, for everybody, when you got your nose down at a book or an iPad and someone's trying to listen to you. But before we head off, we're getting close to the top of the hour. It always goes quick, and it's always a lot of fun.
And it doesn't ever feel like it. It's cool.
No,
exactly.
Exactly. So now, you said you're recording stuff. Is there an album on the horizon to come out that I can look forward to putting another one in my collection? Or
Yeah. So right now, what we've been looking at in terms of, I mean, I'm sure you're also aware that the first EP, we didn't have all of it on streaming. It was just the first couple of singles.
Right.
And right now we have a couple of those covers up there, our Dolly Parton cover of Tennessee Homesick Blues. We have our Beatles cover. And one of the things that we really want to do is, the beauty of this band has been, people have been so positive about it and loving that we've gotten so many incredible opportunities to perform and be on the road and fit a show in here and there, that it's kind of like we sometimes forget to record the music.
Yeah.
And it's not intentional. It's just like, yeah, we gotta go. We gotta go do this. And I mean, as you can see from the Kickstarter, that everybody has to have a day job in this thing. Like when you said, I'm not gonna quit my day job, I mean, I can't quit my day job. Nobody can quit their day job.
Exactly.
So we're very, very focused on getting into the studio. And I would say by the end of August, early September, we will have 4 to 5 songs that have already been played on the road. There are full live videos out of some of them. I know at our show at the Wiltern back in October and our last show in Nashville back in January, there were a couple of people who recorded the whole set and put it up on YouTube. So that's been cool to kind of see the response online as well. Ain't My First Rodeo, which is going to be the next single, we recorded it partially in Gilby Clarke of Guns N' Roses studio. And then we also went over to Jay Rustin studio and had him do some production work, and that's where we're also going to record the next single beyond that. So we're hoping to have at least every 6 weeks a single out, and especially with the Kickstarter, we've got that music video that we're filming this weekend, and we're hoping that once that's done, once the single is out, once the next single is finished, we can then record the next video, because it's important to us at this point to represent the band of where it's at right now. Like a lot of growth, and we're very proud of it. And we want to be able to, in this day and age where people, for better or worse, listen to a lot of things on streaming, we want them to be able to have that professional quality recording that maybe isn't going to fully represent the live sound, because live is always different than the recording, but at least matches that energy and is something that we're really proud of. So in terms of like a record and a full length, I think the focus will be more on here's a single. We would love to be able to do a 7-inch maybe first, just so that we can have something physical out too, maybe a CD with that. And then once we kind of have a decent amount of them out, you'll see some of those on the record and maybe a few surprises beyond that.
Cool. Yeah. And you kind of answered my last question here before we go, which is, when you are recording, are you thinking about how you're going to perform it live when you're recording in the studio? Because you can do so much in the studio that you obviously can't do when you're
live
on stage, so like adding instruments and stuff like that. Does that ever come into play for you guys?
we've had two different processes in the studio thus far. And like with Born Ready, it was very much of building this song that we had never played live before.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some keyboard in there that I added that, because we haven't had a keyboard on stage for me in eons, that we just don't have in the live setting. And I think we're kind of cool with the differences. A lot of the times we'll actually even extend the solo and the outro because it'll be something at the end of the set that we really want to milk.
Right.
Rodeo was actually the exact opposite. We worked on a demo just for the sake of being like, okay, when we go into the rehearsal studio, we thought this out, we put this together from a writing perspective. This is what we want it to sound like live. Now, when we get into rehearsal, this is how we're going to develop it. And then when we went to record it, we had been playing it live so frequently at that point for several months that it was almost kind of the opposite, where when we went in to do the first couple of sessions with Gilby said to me, what if you do this? And part of it was because the way I like to describe this song is that there's a lot of, it's got kind of a Stray Cat Strut bass line to it, like that kind of feel, but it's a little bit more, especially as the song develops, like it gets a little bit louder, it gets a little bit more confrontational. And I was kind of going through it the way that I would sing it live. And because Gilby was hearing the vocal melody of it for the first time, he was kind of not used to the journey the way that I was. And he was like, what if you do this instead? And we came to this point where, you know, he said an idea and I copied that. And I was like, you know what if it was this? And now it's like, that's completely different than the other approach where it was like, we got the recording done. Now it's time to bring it to everybody live. So I guess it really just depends on the song and also where we are in the country, you know, where we are in the studio.
Yeah. Well, Blaise, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your schedule and talking with me and, you know, being part of this inaugural series for the podcast. I'm looking forward to turning it into something special and, you know, along with the local stuff. And, you know, again, I can't thank you enough. And I really look forward to seeing you guys play and hopefully meeting you in person and being able to shake
you
your hand.
definitely will.
Yeah, cool. And I think it's great. I know you guys at Art Park, you were right out there talking to the fans. And I don't know if you remember, I gave you my Flamingo Lounge buttons at the time. I don't know if they...
I do actually now, because it was bright blue, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, I do remember, because I remember being like, this is my favorite color combo. It's the bright blue and the pink. Yes, I remember.
Yeah, that's pink. Pink is my signature color. So.
Yeah.
But again, thanks so much for being with me and for everyone who's tuned in. I hope you've really enjoyed this show as much as we have. And as always, you can find the podcast where you get your podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Audible, thebuffalohive.com, YouTube, and of course, you can always find the podcast at rockabillygreg.com, where it's all about the music, and I'll have some videos up there on the website. I'll have links to where you can find out where the Midnight Cowgirls are playing next, and all your solo projects. I'll try and put something together so kind of everyone can go there and find out what you guys are up to. So again,
Thank
Blaise,
you so much. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you. Same here. So to everybody, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. In the Flamingo Lounge, Favorites is made possible in part by Buffalo Ironworks, an intimate live music venue and bar located in the Cobblestone District in downtown Buffalo, and by Sportsman's Tavern, Buffalo's original honky-tonk and popular live music venue. Catch new episodes when available on Tuesdays at 8 a.m. on your favorite podcast platform or at rockabillygreg.com, where it's all about the music. Bark, Zoe, bark. Good girl.